You can see now that these corners are coming really nice now, and that's pulling in. I think the fiberglass is pulling into the stainless, and the stainless is giving a little bit as well. So that's getting the corner lined up nicely. Okay, pulling in. Remember, don't still over tighten them. Now what happens now is that these screws are only temporary, and we will now I'll just drill that, just because we keep screwing it. Remember, don't put any more than one screw in without drilling a hole. Don't drill 3 or 4 holes then try to put the screw in. Put a screw in, drill a hole, and then do the next screw, and that pulls up nicely. Remember that towards the end of the build, you'll take each screw out individually and replace it neatly with a pot rivet, and then take another screw out, replace it with a pot rivet, making sure it pulls it up together tightly. We'll look underneath this now, and you will see that we've fixed in a bracer across the bonnet before we started this job to hold the bonnet in position. So I'll lift the bonnet up now, and you'll see that bracer that went in before we started the nose cone. You'll see that that has miraculously pulled together there. We've got a nice gap. You'll see the plastic strip is in there. We take that masking tape off, you see that's trapped in there nicely. We've got a slight difference here, that ½ inch gap. Don't worry about that because the nose cone will go into that, that's normal. As we look underneath here now, as we look underneath the bonnet, we'll see first of all the tube are referred to hold the bonnet, stainless steel bonnet together. This is an ordinary bit of round tube. It's cranked slightly, and the ends are squashed and bent at 90 degrees and bolted onto the edge of the bonnet. That stiffens the bonnet up considerably. You'll see when that comes down, it just clears the cam cover and the top of the top hose. But more importantly, you'll see all the screws that have pulled through there, pulled it up tight, and you'll see the longer screws in the corner and the important strengthening plates underneath the corner.
I can't see them. Can you move this stay?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So you'll see the screws, the way they've pulled through and pulled the GRP up to the stainless steel, and you'll see we've helped in the corners by having that little strengthening strip, and you'll see those important longer self-tapping screws that pull it up and support the GRP. And as I said earlier, what will happen is that one by one we'll remove the screws and put a neat pot rivet in. We're now going to take out this temporary stay and lower the bonnet down. You'll see that it comes down. Just remember, you must make sure there's nothing on top of the engine or on top of the battery at any time you're working on your Robin Hood, because you put a dint in the bonnet comes down nicely like that, and it just shuts down properly like that. The nose cone, the bonnet closes nicely like that. The nose cone just misses the chassis tube at the front, nice and square. We're now going to move to the nose cone infill panels just here to fill this void. We've already covered earlier the nose cone infill panels on the mild steel car, and we're going to fit them to this. This is virtually the same process, but as we shut the bonnet down, we need to look at the point where the bonnet or the nose cone nearly touches the chassis at the front, where it does touch just there. So we're going to put this nose cone infill panel on, but we're going to trim it away at the point that it's going to protrude too far out. So which is on that bottom corner. So I'm going to offer it up and mark round it and trim it. We've said, and we're putting it against the cutout round the rack, and then we know it's down here that we need to trim the material off. So we're marking it with this marker, and we're going to trim it off like that. So with it marked like that, we get the gilbows and we just whiz that piece off round there. When you're cutting with these metal cutting shears, it does leave a sharp edge that you could easily cut yourself on. With the plasma cut edge, that's okay, you're never going to do anything with that, but that is a horrible sharp edge. Just be careful. So we put it back on again now like that, and we can see that it's clear there. I'm going to put a couple of screws in that corner to hold that, then I'm going to planish that corner over. Got 2 screws in that, one just there and one just there. We're just going to planish that corner over. Then we're going to hope that the bonnet, or the nose cone of the bonnet, will come down and miss that, and all this will shoot up into the inside of the nose cone. Obviously, we will need to swap that screw for a pop rivet later on, because it's pretty sure that will be in the way. So we're taking out this temporary stay, and we're just carefully putting the bonnet down, like so, and that's going over that nicely, and that screw is a flipping nuisance, it's just caught it, and that's going into there really, really well. So what happens now is that we get the marker, the black marker, which is just here, excuse me, and we make sure the bonnet's down there, and we're drawing around that like so, because we know that is the minimum we can have, and we whiz it back up again. We whiz it back up in the air like that, and we put the temporary stay back in again. Careful of these temporary stays, because if you're not careful, poke a hole in your fiberglass. And what we're going to do now is that we're going to, so this is nice and neat, we're now going to trim a little bit off this. So we know where the black line is. We're going to trim it so there's about an inch like that, shoots inside the nose cone, like so. So we might just do it slightly, no, we'll do it like we said. So we'll trim all that off there, take it off, trim that off and put it back on again.
Right.
We've now got it on like that, and we've trimmed it. Now, my clever technician has just explained to me that we've perhaps cut that a little bit too short. We'll have a job to get screws in there, but there is just enough room to get some self-tapping screws in there, or some pot rivets, sorry. But obviously if it had been another half an inch long, it would have been better. But we come to the next stage now. You remember how to fasten all this back? Well, we won't do that quite yet, but we'll shut the nose cone again. Because what we need to do is tuck that behind the nose cone line, and we need to, before we fasten that, we need to push that out like so that it's a nice tight fit to the nose cone. So what will happen is we'll fasten that back there, and instead of putting those screws or pot rivets straight in to the tube, we'll push that out and pack that out with some space, with some washers, with anything you like, so that that nose cone panel is coming out to the side of the nose cone, so there's not much of a gap there. So that's what we'll do. We won't do it on video, but that's something I'll do myself, and I'll show you the finished product later on. We're now going to fit 3 panels that you get into your kit, which are the firewall panels. These separate the engine from the occupants. These panels, when you get them, come in this form like that. There's a large one, and then there's that goes in front of the passenger. There's a smaller one with a circular hole in it with the bottom cut out. That goes behind the servo mounting panel, and then there's one that's not quite square with a couple of bites out of it. That is the battery tray. You can see we're marking along there exactly a foot. So along there, 12 inches, we're talking imperial today, 12 inches just there, and then we've got a bend backward, which is 7 inches. In actual fact, I need to do this because the genius we've got that does the programming for these, he's put little bites. So if you look very carefully, you'll see a little bite in the panel, and that indicates where the bend goes. So that is there, and obviously if you project down there, you'll see that meets up with that cut at the bottom. So we've got one bend at 90 degrees there, and then another one going the opposite way like that. And that then forms that panel. If we could just come behind it, if we go behind it, we'll see that this part just there actually goes straight down. That goes straight down there, and we'll just see two self-tapping screws that go into the tube. Now remember, when we talk about fastening these panels in, you'll notice that all the while I'm encouraging you not to weld them, to fasten them in with self-tapping screws. You will find the self-tapping screws will work perfectly when you screw into this 2mm tube. They do bite nicely, and they do hold very firmly, and they can be left in permanently. However, in areas where you're fastening the 7mm to 7mm, then you'll find that whilst the self-tapping screw is ideal initially for the fixture, that eventually you'll have to put pop rivets in.
You mean 0.7?
What did I say?
7mm.
Right. Go back. Right, I did mean 0.7 instead of 7mm. So, right, come around here again then. Resting this panel, the Z-shaped panel now, in naturally, you'll see that the bite that there is in it goes round that tube nicely. Don't worry if there's a little bit of a gap like that, you'll soon fill that with a silicone sealer. And then now you're coming to do the battery tray that the battery sits in. And with that, again, there's little bites in it, you'll see little marks. You'll fold that up along that edge like there, and fold it along the back like that. Both those will be turned up. And then you'll see that, offer it up into position, and you'll see that you'll then need to, approximately along there, put another fold, so that sits down into in between the round tube and the back wall, and then we've just turned that face, tap that over with a hammer so it follows the contour of that tube, and then obviously at the side it overlaps the side panel, and then you can fasten it with screws along there. So you'll see that there is a hole just there for the clutch cable, and this other hole jack, what's this? For the accelerator cable, for the accelerator cable to go through. So that is bent, you'll see at an angle, quite a precise angle, and with your master cylinder and servo bolted to that, it will give you the right, correct height to clear the bonnet. We're looking at this panel. Again, I can see there's conveniently a couple of little nicks in it there and there, that you bend that at 90 degrees backwards, and then it looks like there's one tag there that you bend inwards, and that will sit on top of the tube. This is obviously fastened quite firmly to the, just move that away, to that little 3mm plate that's welded on top of the tube there. So you come to bolt that on, you come to bolt the servo panel onto it, and it fastens on quite securely, and then the whole lot is all sandwiched together like so. It's all sandwiched together and bolted in tightly. Remember that you have got a little bit of movement with this panel, depending on whether you've got long or short legs. So before you decide on that, where you want it, just decide on the length of your legs sit in the car, and then you will have to just slightly reform that panel, the last panel, so that it fits correctly. .26" from the donor vehicle, and then we trimmed it down to 24.5. You can see that we've fastened it on directly in front of the radiator, and we've temporarily fixed it with 4 small self-tapping screws, as we've temporarily fixed on the actual catch that goes underneath the bonnet with 2 self-tapping screws and 2 washers. Obviously, once we're certain that we've got these in the correct place, then these self-tapping screws will be substituted by 2-inch long, 1/4-inch thick bolts. From the residue you've got left from the strip that goes underneath the car, the inch-by-inch angle, we're going to use a piece that's 34 inches long overhaul. 6 inches from each end we're going to take out a notch as shown there, and then 2.5 inches from each end on the same plane we're going to reduce the ends by about 1/4 inch. In between that point and that point we're going to put it in the vise, and we're going to bend it slightly so that we get a little bit of a bend upwards about there. Now, this may not be very neat, but we do need to bend the end, as I'm going to show you. Those of you with welding equipment could in fact put a nick in it and do it that way, but the one that we've done, which I'll show you now, has been done by just bending it in the vise. So you can see that that is the change in direction where I need it to lift up, and you can see we've bent that there to give it, looks like a 1/2 inch rise in the matter of the 6 inches. You can see that we've cut the corners out and we've bent those so that that angle is just less than 90, and we've obviously sat it on the deck to make sure it's square. Now what happens now is pretty obvious, is that you see we've fitted a bonnet onto this car here, and what happens is that we now get this, and where we've reduced the ends, that sits in the little channel at the bottom underneath on the bottom edge of the bonnet. That sits in that channel like so, and you will need to lift the bonnet up to sprag it out, and that sits in there, and that's pushed in like that so that you square it up so it sits on this bonnet slam panel. The bonnet slam panel is slightly higher, that's why we need the kink in there, and it pushes up pretty tight to that bonnet catch, the original catch. So we've taken the pin out, that's a safety catch, and then obviously it's pretty simple now. All you do is where it goes into that little ledge there, then you drill through, put a couple of 6mm bolts and washers, and then that's a pretty good safety rail, so that apart from the overside catches at the side, you've got this that acts not only as a safety rail, but people that aren't familiar with Robin Hoods, that'll stop them opening the bonnet. This can be made accessible from either lying underneath the car and get your hands in and operating that catch, or you could cut off that finger plate and you could operate it with a special hook that you hook through the grill to pull that catch like that. Recognise this panel as being the rear wing for the near side of the car. It has the cone down one side, and because it's stainless, this particular application, it's got the plastic coating on it. Remember, those of you who have wide rear wings, you will find that this panel will be wider than this. Now, to start with, we're going to, it comes exactly in the form you see it, except we've already drilled holes in it, and to know where to drill those holes, we've put a strip of masking tape directly at the termination of the comb. So where the comb finishes, we've put a strip of masking tape along there like that, most things just there, and then we've drilled a hole in each tooth of the comb, approximately 3/4 of an inch, a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch down the masking tape, which is kind of halfway along the tape. So we've just popped an hole all the way along there. The next stage is on the bottom corner, which is a wide corner. We're going to put a fold, a 90-degree fold on it. And again, we'll see very carefully if you look, there's a little indication just there, which is about 7/8 from the edge of it. The same there. So we're going to put the fold inwards. So as we look at the back of this, this is the non-plastic side at the back. We're going to fold that the way you've known how to do it along that bottom edge. We've got that 90-degree fold on that bottom, and now we're going to turn up all these teeth. So I've got a pair of vice grips, quite a decent quality pair of grips, a 9-inch pair of vice grips with a deep jaw. If you've got some cheap jaws, cheap vice grips with not such a deep jaw, then just pop them in your vice and get your hacksaw and just take a chunk out of the bottom of the jaw. So what we're aiming to do is to, I'll just come around, it may be easier like that. I'm aiming to get the vice grips, and we'll start from this end, like so. And I'm pushing the vice grips up so that the jaw comes up to the edge of the tape, like so. And then I'm just bending each one up like that at just over 90 degrees. So remember with this that we're doing it, so we're bending these with the inner face to the inside like this. So we're bending them like that. I've just changed something then quite dramatically. I've taken the masking tape off, and instead of it being on the bit that we're bending, I've put it on the piece that is static. So I've still got it at the very bottom of the cones, so it makes it a little bit easier now to do. So I'm still putting the vice grips up to the start of the tape and bending each leg at 90 degrees. So I'm going down these nice and straight, simple, around about 90, if anything just a little bit over. And all these tags up around about 90 degrees, slightly over 90 degrees, but it's not difficult now just to bend them by hand exactly as we want them. So the next stage is just to get a file and take any burr that's on this inside edge. It's important, we want to get the GRP to fit to it well. So just go over that edge like that and just take the burr. Another idea is just to rough up that first inch along there with some sandpaper, so that when we do decide to stick the fiberglass onto that or bond it to it, there's a little bit of a key. So just some rough sandpaper and just go over that to rough up that first inch. Right, we get the wing, we've trimmed it nicely, sanded the edges down, and we're very roughly going to overlap the fiberglass with about 1 inch of the stainless. So we're going to offer that. You've got to make sure, this is important now, good, I'm glad I've told you this, remembered. You've got to make sure you put the right wing on the right side. So this wing now is the near side, which is a passenger side wing. And it's really important. You'll notice that you can see that that end there is narrower than that end. Can you see that, cameraman?
Yes.
Right. So make sure that the narrow end goes to the front. This is the near side wing, okay? So we're now going to put it on there like that, and we're going to overlap it roughly, I said exactly an inch, okay? So it's going to overlap it an inch. So we're going to drill a hole in the end there like that, into the stainless, like so. We're then going to offer the wing up again, and we're going to just by hand just bend that, so the bend of that is the same as the fiberglass. So we're going to offer that up like that, and we're going to push it well into the corner and drill the fiberglass like so. And then we're going to put one small self-tapping screw in. Again, remember that you screw it into the fiberglass and it doesn't bite very well. If you overscrew, then all it does is just strip the fiberglass. You will eventually swap that for a pot rivet, or you put a little 2BA nut and bolt in, or you put a little bit of metal behind the fiberglass, so you screw it into something substantial. And remember, I'm struggling with this on my own. Another set of hands, or two sets of hands, obviously is better. So we're screwing that up like that, and then I've got to tell you that this process of this new wing, this new 2B wing, we really thought people would struggle, or we'd struggle doing it, but it's turned out to be really, really easy, and we're really, really pleased with it. So we're doing this obviously on a piece of carpet. This is stainless. Remember, we've got the plastic to the outside, and all we do now then is we just move that like that, all the way around there, keep going, and come to the end, and you see where we're coming from with this. We've got that nicely started on there, and we're looking to overlap it something like an inch. So once we've got it on there like that, then we need to clamp it at this end here, because we obviously got to put another screw in it. Now the good news, Gina's laughing because I've used the word clampet. She's got some neighbours called clampets. Just excuse me a second. So we've got that clamp now with the vice grips. We turn it over and we can see that it's fitted nice and tight along there. We pull that out so it looks right, so it's parallel, and we will find that it's still about an inch below. So what happens now, it's tight, it's a nice gap there, we need it to be a little bit tighter. So what we'll do, we'll slide that back in further like that, and then we'll have another bite at it at this end. So we've slid that in like that. You can do somebody holding it for you, and then we're undoing the clamps and we're clamping it again like that. Another set of hands would really help. Drag the wife away from the goggle box and get the help you. So we've got that like that, and then with that clamp to that end, take the bull by the horns and we'll put a screw in there. Now don't worry that I'm just screwing this willy-nilly. You can screw it willy-nilly as well, because at this end, this is the end where the stone guard is. The stone guard covers all this up. So remember, we've got that pushed further in than what we want, and we're putting the screw in there like so, and that then fixes that end. And what happened from an experience with the other wing was that with that screw in there, we can now take the vice grips out, and when we pull that out to the correct distance out, It's snug as a bug, really, really tight. That tight that I'd really question that you need to glue it. So we'll just pull it out a little bit further. Still needs to go up a little bit further. And that's now parallel all the way. So what we're going to do now is stick that with sticky tape so it doesn't move. When I say sticky tape, I'm referring to masking tape. So masking tape is really strong, and it will hold the wing in the correct position, and it's really tight, snug as a bug together on that face there. So that's stuck that, and while the wing's off, I'll show you underneath, if you can zoom in, you can see on the inside face we've got a nice gap there, a 16th gap. So what happens then is we force some Sikaflex or some glue or some kind of sealer into that gap eventually, and that sticks it together quite firmly. You'll see this car has got the new type rear coilover shock absorbers on it, and you'll see also if you look closely that we've got a couple of spring clamps compressing the spring. Now this is simply because until we've got the car finished, or any of these Robin Hoods finished, they sit too high. It's only when you've finished them and they've been out on the road and gone round the block that the springs settle down and you get your passenger and yourself in it and a full tank of petrol. So for this exercise of fitting the rear wings, you've got to get the car at the right height. Now looking at it now, it looks like it's about at the right finish ride height that we're looking at. So from the ground, we're measuring 6.5. Possibly it could be 7. So that is the height we've finished up at, we want to finish up at, between 6.5 and 7. So we put the spring clamps on and clamp those springs up to give it the right height. Simply because we're now going to fit the wing, and if the cameraman could come square on to the wheel please, happening where we're coming from with this, you can see that with the wing we've got those tags bent in, that protruding, and now that part that's protruding goes into that slot just there like that, and the wing is going into position there. We've got some vice grips, we're going to clamp it up underneath there to hold it on temporarily, like so, and we're looking, this isn't set up, this is real, we're looking to get the wing so that the gaps front and back between there and there are both the same. So many kit car shows where they've got the gaps all wrong. Lots of Cobras you see, they've got the gaps all wrong because there's nothing to do about it. With the 2B, we can actually move the wing a little bit forward and back to get it spot on. So we've got it clamped up just there, and we're pressing the wing into the bodywork. Now I can see here that we need to rotate the wing around anti-clockwise because we've got to line the back panel up with the back of the wing. So we can see it wants to go forward a little bit. We'll just unclamp that and just move it a little bit forward. So we're a little bit limited, but yes, it's not looking bad. Now, if we come to the back, just round here, please, we can come to the back, we can see we've got a gap here. So what it needs these tags bending at a lot more than 90 degrees in order to so it fits the panel better, and we think we're going to struggle a little bit to bring that in line, but no, I think we'll be okay. So we're going to bend these tags more than the 90 degrees. We'll use the vice grips again and we'll bend them a little bit more. So you don't... So I'm now going to offer this up again, having bent those tags a lot more than 90. And we're now going to press it to the body like that. It's a lot better. And we're going to force this edge upwards like that, so that that's flush there. And we're then going to push the wing in like that, get inside, clamp it with a clamp, and remember we've already drilled that one hole through those combs, so we've got to drill the other hole in the body and fasten it in with a small self-tapping screw. But remember, on this process now, all the while before we fix that, because that can be kind of anywhere around there, you can move it wherever you want. The key thing is the gap that I showed you between the tyre and the front and the back of the wing. We'll just go back to that again. So with that big assortment of positions I've just showed you then at the back, it's the same situation at the front, that all you're doing is to wherever you fit it, the key thing is that we're looking to get that gap there the same. So we come to the front of the wing again. Let's look at the front of the wing. Are you coming to the front of the wing then?
Oh,
so we've got the front of the wing here, and we can see that's wobbly as well. We can fit it where we like. We're going to press that into the body there. And this side isn't quite as good as the other side that we've done previously. And we now need to pull, you see how we're moving that panel? We need to clamp that together with some grips, some screws, and pull that up tight. Now, this side won't be as good as the other side, but don't worry about the gap you've got just there, because remember the stone guard covers this. It covers all the screws, all the mistakes you've made here. So, the point, just to recap, this can fit anywhere, front and back. We've got this pushed well up to this tube just here, and we're looking to get the gap equal front and back of the tyre. Now we're going to go onto the other side of the vehicle now, and we've got a wing that's completed. I'll take the wheel off and you'll see exactly how we've fixed it. This is a wing that we've done earlier, and you can see how we've got the wheel on and the gaps there are good. I'm going to take the wheel off now so you can see underneath. So you can see underneath the wing where we've carefully, each part of the comb, pop riveted to the side panel. You see we've got 3 self-tapping screws in there. We've pulled in this flap we bent round earlier to pull it in tight. And then we move to the front, and you can see where we've pulled it in and pop riveted the comb again to the front. You can see that we've got that nice and flush at the bottom, and it's pulled up nicely there like that. There's still the piping to go in the wing, which I'll explain later on. Remember this area at the back there, whatever you do on one side, you've got to try to copy on the other side so it's the same. You will see we've now got the lamp in, and the lamp is exactly from the bottom on the outside is 6 inches. But basically that's correct for the SVA, but give or take half an inch, doesn't matter. We've got the lamp, so it just encroaches slightly on the GRP. Underneath the lamp there, we've got 2 pop rivets that hold the wing and the fiberglass together there. And you can see how we've got a really nice tight fit around there. Nothing else is needed around there. That fits there really nice and tight. As we move forward, you can see that we've still got this piece of tube exposed just here. You can just see the self-tapping screws that we've got up from underneath the wing into that tube to pull that part of the wing to the tube. And then we've got a nice section here which you will get a curved piece that goes onto there like that, and you won't need a lot of structural fasteners on it. You can probably put 2 or 3 pop rivets, and that goes on there nicely. Pop rivet it to the tube. You'll have to cut it front and back, and then we come down the towards the stone guard.
Okay.
Now you'll see that we've got a stone guard here that is necessary, obviously, to stop stones chipping the back wing. But it is an important key part of the style of a car like this. And it's also key that it should be stainless and pop riveted on 3 sides, not 4 sides, and have a beading round it. You get that beading in the kit, Simply glue that on the back of the stone guard first before you start. Decide on about 1.5 inch gap between the pot rivets. Drill all the holes from behind first, and then you need then to cut a cardboard template out like so that follows the contour of the body, because it is curved, and it comes down to the bottom like that. It picks up the wing there, looks neat, and this top edge is horizontal. So you cut out that stone guard. Even if they're a little bit different for both sides, don't worry too much, but it's got to follow the shape. If the wing didn't pull up very well to the side of the body on the side, don't worry too much, because then you've got your perfect stone guard that hides a multitude of sins. Also, you've got not 1,000, you've got 3 or 4 holes where you've got it wrong down there, but this stone guard covers it. So with that pattern like that, you then get the blank that's made oversized, put it on there like that, and you can see that there's plenty of material there for you to mark out like so. Like that, snip off or gilbo off or jigsaw off, and then fasten it on there, pot rivet it on, so that you can just slightly curve it first like that so it follows the contour of the wing like so, and then that fastens it on. So that basically ties up the wing onto the car. Is there any questions? I'm very fortunate really, as I'm able to see quite a few part built Robin Hood 2Bs that customers are building. Most of them are quite good, very few I'm disappointed at. I have a car here which has been built by a customer, and there's lots of points on the car I'd like to show you because it's an exceptionally well built car. It's really impressed us the way it's been put together and how there's lots of attention to detail being paid. Having said that, and having you seen it, I really don't want you to get disheartened and feel it isn't as good, or you could have done things differently, because quite truthfully, as I said to the person that was building it, he has built it better than what we probably would have built it ourselves. So he is a perfectionist. And I'm looking at it today because there is a certain number of points on it which he is disappointed at, and he can't quite get round. So I'm going to show you how to get round those points that aren't quite right, but having said that, they are acceptable. He's built the car using all the donor vehicle components. Things like the rear suspension is original. He's used the flat type McPherson struts. You'll see that he's painted things really nice. He's used the loom. He's made a very, very tidy job of the loom, and he's reconditioned the engine fully, and you can see he's got new tyres on it, or good tyres, and the wheels are cleaned up. He's obviously had quite a high-spec car. The original instruments are in it. Yeah, in all, he's made a really good job of it. Real nice chap. Looks a little bit like him out of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. What was his name, Gina?
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson, yeah. I'm sure he'll forgive me for saying that. So I'm going to go on now and just show you the finer points on the car that he's done. We're going to start the way he's very tidily clipped everything up on the